Assalamu everyone. Let's do a quick recap. So we started our studying with basically pronouns. And in pronouns we had attached, and then we had non-attached. Right? Non-attached are basically by themselves, the huwa, huma, hums, hiya, huma, hunna. And then attached we had, attaching with verb and attaching with nouns. What were they? Basically, I give you something like, let's say, nasara, right? Nasara. And I said nasara means he helped. How do I say he helped you? We said nasaraka, right? And then I know it's been a while, but this is something we taught. Then we also said, well, how do I say book? We say kitab. That's an ism, right? And how do you say your book? We say kitabuka. Kitabuka, right? So these were the attached pronouns, the kas, right? And then so that was a study of pronouns. Then we got into basically verbs. And then when it came to verbs, we said that in verbs we have things like past tense, right? We had present tense. We had past passive, like ja'ala would be ju'ila, right? Past passive, present passive. We had commands, and then we had forbidding. Right, so these are the study of verbs in detail. We spent a lot of time on that. Then we came into the world of nouns. And then what did we cover in the world of nouns? We had their status. And what do we know in status? We had things like so in status we had so you had the rafa, nasab, and jar. You had how do I tell these, if something is rafa, nasab, or jar. Then we had heavy and light, and how each word looks like when it's heavy, or how each word looks like when it's light. And we had like about 3 charts in this guy, right? And we also talked about the flexibility, right? Some words are flexible, fully flexible, partially flexible, or non-flexible. And then and then after status we got into number, right, or count, right? Basically, whether it's a singular, dual, or plural, and how can you tell, right? And then we in count, the most important part of count was broken plurals. And then we got into the study of again, nouns. When you're looking at nouns or isms, you have to look at 4 properties. Status is one of them, count is one of them, or number. And then we had gender. And in gender, we know that there's 3 types of there's the real feminine. So everything is masculine unless something is done to it. And what are those things? Whether it's a real feminine, whether it is you got the real feminine, then you have broken plurals, right? Those are considered feminines, right? Then we had Arab setso, and then we also had the taz, or the ya, and then the a'u, right? These are considered feminine. And then the last thing we learned in status, count, gender, then we had also type. And this is what is this? It's basically common or proper. And there were 7 things why something is proper. Okay, 7 things, and what are those 7? We had a whole list of them, and while we're studying this, type, we had to get into the pointing words, right? Then we had ism mawsul, the what's it called, alladhi and alladhina, these type of words, right? Ism mawsul. right? So we studied that in when it came to the world, when it came to the world of type. Then we also had idafa, right? Let me delete this. What else did we learn? We learned idafa, right? And then that was basically talking about mudaf, mudaf ilayh. What are the properties of mudaf? Well, basically it's no alif lam, and must be light, right? And for mudaf ilayh, it was basically it's a jar, right? And then we had other things like let's see, we had prepositions, and in prepositions we talked about harf jar, bata, kaf, lam, waw, and harf nasab. Inna, annaka, anna, laita, lakinna, la'alla, right? So we learned a list of words, and these are the ones that make something's jar. And what does jar mean? Then you look at the whole study of rafa, nasab, jar, right? The charts. So lots going on over there. But now, what we want to get into in our final step is basically the study of sentences. Okay, adjectives, right? So this is basically what's coming up now. That okay, well, how do I know? How do I make sentences? And when we start studying sentences, you have what we call the verbal sentence, and then noun sentence, right? So this is verbal sentences are called jumla fi'liya, and noun sentences are called jumla ismiya. And these are the two different types of sentences in Arabic, which we will cover in our next few classes. And also there are basically harfs, okay, basically which apply on verbs. Okay, so just like we had inna, annaka, anna, and then bata, kaf, lam, waw, those are only talking about affecting something that is ism. But then we also have a list of harf which apply on verbs only. Okay, they will affect a verb. And how do they what happens to a verb when particularly present tense when these harfs come in? So we will cover that as well. Okay, adjective is going to be easy one. So is this one. Sentence structure is important. It could take a long time, but we'll just basically cover very at a very high level how do you have these verbal sentences, and we have got already a glimpse of it, but we'll be covering it a little bit in more detail as well. So, and then the most important part after this is number 4, which is basically applying these rules. Applying rules and to Quran. Right? I want everybody to be looking at a word and say, oh yeah, I see the harf jar is affecting this word, and whether it's a rafa, nasab, or jar, whether it's light or heavy, and it's a detail of a verb, and it whether it's an adjective or not. There's a lot going on, and we want to be able to make sure that when we read in Quran, of course, we are understanding it now much better than what we did before. Of course, today's class we started about talking about like once a person says, hey, you know what, I've made my attention and I want to learn Quran, I want to be able to understand Quran, and then they start reading and they don't even know how to read. So first step is you would teach them the alphabets, right? So I had somebody requested, well, you're teaching grammar, we want to get connected to Quran, and why don't you give us a tafsir of an ayah a day or something, right? Well, in an hour and a half we don't have that much time. So and somebody else can come and say, well, why don't you teach us alphabets in this Arabic grammar class? So let's look at, in the study of Arabic, where does grammar fit in? So first you learn how to do alphabets. Then once you know that, you can't learn how to read before you know how to recognize alphabets, how to connect them, and that's how the art of reading is going to come in. Once you know how to read, then the next step would be, okay, let's learn the grammar. Once you know the grammar, in fact, even before this, I would say tajweed is important. Now you know how to read. Well, let's look at some of the tajweed rule, because you want to give 100% right to each word, because it's the speech of Allah, and you want to be able to pronounce it the way He wants you to pronounce, not in your accent of wherever you come from. So basically, you will need to have tajweed. You will have proper pronunciation. Then you will get into grammar. Right, so you can see this is just a very small part of the whole picture of really trying to understand the Arabic language, and of course understanding Quran. Then you can start adding vocab. Now you know grammar. Well, now I know, if I know a word in how to say I fell, then I already know how to say you fell, and he fell, and she falls, and they fall, right? So just because you learn grammar, it's a lot easier to add more vocab to your list. Then you can keep on going, and now you start reading Quran, and you know all the vocab, and you know all the grammar, you're understanding it. Well, the next thing would be tafsir. Right, now I'm not saying you can't jump back and forth, because a person doesn't even have to do any of this and can just start listening to tafsir, and they will understand Quran. But of course, if you want a higher understanding, you'll have to go one step at a time, and we are basically in this whole picture. By the way, all these 6 things that I'm saying, these are not 6 pillars of understanding Quran. I just made them up 5 minutes ago. Grammar is where we are at right now, right? So this is basically what I'm teaching. Everything else is as important, but this is what we're teaching in this class. So next step would be just kind of, again, we can keep on learning all these rules, but the goal is to start applying them to Quran, and so this way, when we get to the vocab step, we already know how to apply all these rules that we have learned, right? So sentence structure, learning how to adjectives and verbs, applying rules to the Quran. Now there might be some rules that I will probably not be even teaching, and there will be other grammar courses start with those rules, right? So it's okay if we miss out on a little bit, but the key is majority of the rules that are that you see in Quran a lot, I want to make sure that I at least covered those. And of course, it will probably take another 4 months, hour and a half a week to learn all the rest of the rules. But I would say that the ones that are core, that I would say, I believe that the ones that are core rules that you need to learn are the ones that I have been covering, and also once we cover this, we should be in good shape. And then we'll take a couple more classes to apply everything, not just these 4 rules, but everything else that we have learned, and we'll apply them and get a better understanding of Quran. And that will end, and inshallah we'll see you in our next class. Thank you.